Hey everybody, welcome to episode 82 of the Askdap show, where we answer your Volkswagen Audi questions. On this episode, we talk about IS38 Turbo versions and retrofitting a Mark 7 Clubsport spoiler on a Golf R.
Daniel Salazar via YouTube says, I bought the OBDeleven a few months ago and it's been really helpful. However, I've had some misfire issues in my Mark 5 Jetta 2.0T FSI, and when I wanted to check them in live data as you showed in the video, I couldn't find that data. Any coding necessary to activate that function? Does it depend on what VW model and year you have?
Okay, Daniel, so first I want to say I appreciate the purchase of the OBDeleven. Glad it's been helpful for you. Next I want to touch on is the misfire video. So I made a video showing you how to diagnose misfires on a vehicle. I actually think it's really good for anybody who has misfires. It's a must watch for that, and I'll link to that here where you can check out that video that I made. But in that video we show you, once you get into the engine control module and you're looking at the modules to drill down specifically where the misfires are, when you go to select it, it gives you the option to search via text for misfire counters, and then you select them, add them, and pull up the live data for the misfire counters. So in older models, that's not an option yet for OBDeleven stuff. I failed to mention that when I made that video, is that would look differently. What you need to do is you're going to go into the same channel for measuring value blocks, but then instead of being able to search via text, you actually have to put in the number you're looking for. So what you're going to be looking for is channel 15, 16, and 17. Those should be, 14, 15, and 16. Those should be your channels for misfires on that vehicle, and it's going to give you access to that same data that I showed in that video, but you're actually going to have to go direct to them as opposed to being able to search via the normal function that was shown in that video. You know, obviously, again, I failed to mention that in that video, which was an oversight on my part for sure. So hopefully that helps you in diagnosing your misfire, and good luck.
Jason via Facebook says, I've just installed the Unitronic Turbo back exhaust and intercooler that I purchased from you on my 2015 Jetta TSI. After driving for a short time, my check engine light came on. Checked the fault and it was a P0420, catalyst efficiency below threshold. I'm sure this has to do with the high flow cat that comes on this exhaust. Just wondering what I should do about getting this light off and still be able to pass an emissions inspection. Thanks.
Okay, Jason, so first, thank you so much for the purchases. I appreciate it. All right, so you have a turbo back exhaust, and yes, you are correct. Adding that high flow cat will change, obviously, the efficiency of the catalyst on the vehicle, which is going to set a check engine light on a vehicle without any software. So a couple of different options you have. First is to go stage 2. Stage 2 will prevent the check engine light from coming on under those circumstances. If you don't have stage 2 software available, which sometimes on 1.8T cars there may not be software yet, you can put an oxygen sensor spacer. Oxygen sensor spacers are a good option to actually help prevent that stuff. There is no guarantee, so it's one of those things that you try it and hopefully it will work to solve the problem. And I'll link to the O2 sensor spacer here where you can check that out. The next option you have is, I just want to touch on something. If you are stage 2 in the circumstance, sometimes you'll have issues with passing emissions, and what you would have to do is flash the car back to stock, drive to set the readiness codes. It's codes in the vehicle that you can check. You can use OBDeleven scan tool to check the readiness codes to see where they're at. They're either going to be 0s or 1s, and you want to get them all to be ready, and then you'll be able to pass inspection. You're allowed to have one, I believe, one in North Carolina, one that is not set to pass inspection. I'm not super sure about that at this point, but that's been my awareness previously, that you'll have one that you can have that's not set and still pass inspection. What you would need to do in that circumstance is, if you flash back to stock, if you cycle the key too many times, it will set the light again. So you would want to just drive it to get the readiness code set, and then just pull right in, don't turn the car off, get the car inspected, and then you can continue on your way to either flash back to stage 2 or just continue driving as you are now. Hopefully that answers your question, and again, thanks for the purchase. I appreciate it.
Mike via Facebook says, I just received an IS38 Turbo from a 2017 S3 and the revision is T, and I thought it was the latest revision of the IS38 Turbo. But a buddy sent me a picture from APR's website saying that H is the latest revision. Can anyone sum this up for me, please?
All right, so IS38. IS38, for anybody not familiar, it is the Golf R and Audi S3 Turbo. It's the bigger one, bigger than the IS20 found on GTIs. And it's what people upgrade to, obviously, when you have a GTI and you want to upgrade to get more power. IS38 is an easy bolt-on, close to upwards of almost 400 horsepower just for basic bolt-ons on GTIs. There have been a lot of revisions of all turbos around Mark 7, specifically this one. There's a link that he also posted showing kind of a listing that some of the Mark 7 group have put out, showing all the different variations, which I'll show here. You can check out that list and you'll see that there's quite a few of them, some of them being the early revision ones, and then they were changed and changed and changed. Here's where things get kind of dicey. There is a couple different versions. There is the H version, and then there is the T version, which are the two currently at the time of making this video. Those are the two versions that are the most current versions of their kind at this time. I can tell you this. The H version is intended for Golf R models and up to certain model S3s. If you look them up in the catalog, you look up the old ones, they don't supersede to the new one yet. And at this time, it doesn't look like the H is replaced by the T. Now, it's very possible that 6 months down the road, they sell through the stock of the H and then they decide to supersede it to the T because of the same. I don't really know. The one concern I had, and I looked through as many things as I could before shooting this to try to get a concrete answer, and I don't really have one, but the T and the H application, so the T is for 2017 Audi S3s, was the only model I saw when I went through a few VINs that I ran that shows up as the application for that turbo. It's actually, our catalog showed up as the P, which changes to the T. But on that turbo, they list a different turbo oil return line to the oil pan. They do use the same oil pan, I did check that, but they have a different turbo return line, which makes me think it's possible that where the return line bolts to the turbo is different in some way. That would be my only main concern with this. Otherwise, you can probably do either. Going with the T is probably a better choice. Who knows why they change part numbers? It's one of those things. I think I've talked about this in the past, but when part numbers are revised, dealers, people like us, we have no idea why. If it's an obvious visual difference, you can look at them and see the difference. If it's not, then you have no idea what engineering changes were made to make them different. It is something that could be a T is the latest revision. It could be that they made some sort of tweak for 2017s, and that's why, that's the one being used on production line in 2017, which is why they changed the part number. I don't really know. Could be a combination of all those things. So my only concern with the T is that there's concern about it actually successfully retrofitting easily without any other modification. If that has been verified to work, then I would say going with the T is probably your best bet because it is the most current version. But you also could say going with the H is good because it's tried and true, and they don't know if the T is going to have quality problems of any kind. You could speculate both ways. In general, I like to go with the newest part number, but when there's no clear lineage of application, then it's hard to determine specifically which one's going to make the most sense for you. If you have a T and you're installing it and it fits, I would say stick with that. If you have an H, I wouldn't go crazy. A lot of people in this thread were sweating about, I have an H, should I try to sell it and get a T? For me, I probably wouldn't worry about it too much. There's no evidence that any of those H1s are super failure prone, or really any of the IS38s were not crazy failure prone. I know there were some failures, but it wasn't a rampant issues around IS38s to begin with, making me feel like there's no reason to panic about this particular situation. So I know that's not a definitive answer for anybody who's really looking for something, but hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on the subject around IS38s.
Sailor via VW Vortex says, I might be late to the party, but has anyone installed a Clubsport spoiler? The description says not compatible with Golf R, but is that true?
Okay, so Clubsport. Clubsport spoilers have been something that have been asked about a lot since the Clubsport information was released and a lot of media material came out, and obviously people saw visually it's different. I looked into Clubsport spoilers. First of all, they're extremely expensive when you put together all the parts required. Second of all, and this is the most important point of the whole deal, is Clubsport cars have the same deck lid or hatch as a Golf, and the GTI and the Golf R have a different hatch. So what appears to me as though all the digging I've done, and I asked a couple of my friends at dealers to go out in the lot, shoot a couple pictures of some Golfs for me. So I'll show you side by side. Here's our GTI and then the Golf right next to each other. And as you can see, the spoiler section on the Golf is very different than the GTI. And more importantly, the Golf spoiler section actually appears as though it's built into the trunk and deck lid itself. It's actually not serviceable, it's not removable, it's actually part of the metal of the deck lid. And on the GTI, it's not, it's actually a serviceable spoiler, it's replaceable, that's removable and all that stuff. So for that reason, they're going to be very different deck lids, and I have no idea if the angles are different or any of that stuff. But specifically, they definitely are different, and you're definitely going to not be able to do it. So if you wanted to, let's say, have a Golf R or a GTI and you want to swap to a Clubsport spoiler, what you need to do is either swap hatches with somebody with a Golf who is willing to do that, which is a pretty big endeavor just to swap one hatch to another because all the wiring's in there and all that other stuff. And if you have a backup camera and the other one doesn't, you're gonna have to swap all that over. That's a really big undertaking. Or get a new one painted, glass swapped over, all that stuff done, which is another big endeavor. So I would say, first, if you're doing it yourself and you want to do the work, it's pretty labor intensive, but that would be the most cost effective way to do it. If you wanted to buy a hatch, have it painted, and then buy a Clubsport spoiler and have that painted, I would say you're probably looking at probably $2,500 bucks, $3,000 all in with paint and all that labor, everything else to probably get that job done. Just guesstimating off the top of my head, which is again a really expensive endeavor for the Clubsport spoiler. It is a good looking spoiler, but there are others out there. You know, we have the Ottinger one, which is a pretty popular spoiler, which I'll link to. You can check that out. And there are other spoilers that are out there. So hopefully that answers your question and obviously gives people an insight that the Clubsport spoiler, unfortunately, is just not a viable option unless you have a Golf. Thank you so much for watching episode 82 of the Askdap Show, where we answer your Volkswagen Audi questions. If you have any questions or comments about the questions answered in this show, be sure to leave in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.